Hi everybody, I'm Beatsball, and welcome to my quick tutorial on how to create a Next.js example template with a popular Tailwind CSS library, as well as utilizing TypeScript for type safety. Once this is complete, you can quickly get started on future projects and apps by reusing this template, which I'll show you at the end of this video. Let's get started. First, you'll want to go to your GitHub account and create a brand new repository. In my example, I'm creating the repository create next tailwind example app, but feel free to call it whatever you'd like. Once the repository is created, copy the URL given in the input box. Now type git clone and you'll want to paste the URL. cd into that and let's type yarn init. This will create an npm yarn package for this repository. I'm now firing up Visual Studio Code from the directory. The next thing I'm going to do is add a few packages to my repo. Next is the main package, which also happens to require React and React DOM. I'm also adding TypeScript as well as Tailwind CSS. You'll see that I'm adding a few types packages to help with namespace resolvers for Node and React. After the packages have been added, you'll notice the package.json has been updated with the latest packages. Adding a git ignore file helps with avoiding committing specific files and directories. Commonly, you'll see node modules in this list. Since I'm using VS Code, I'll also be ignoring any files that get generated there, as well as the default build directories that are the result of the Next.js builds. Next, I'm adding some custom yarn scripts to be ran in the command line. We'll only be using dev in this tutorial. In a React application, we'll usually create its src directory, but with Next.js, by default, it has routing which is based on the files you add into the pages directory. Here, I'm adding the base app.tsx file, which is what kicks off our Next.js web application, and my default route in the index.tsx file. I've just copied and pasted some of the code for the app.tsx file from another example template for simplicity. And in the index.tsx file, I'm just creating a really basic component to validate that it gets loaded and rendered correctly. Loading the localhost URL looks like everything loads correctly. Here, I'm adding a base level Tailwind config file. As well as adding a style class name for the Tailwind library to the element. To get styles to work properly, I'll need a few more things. First, a base level CSS file. In this case, I'll name it app.css. I'll also add a few more packages. FullHuman has a post-CSS package that purges unused CSS classes. This is great for minimizing the CSS files when creating a build and only pulls in the classes that are being used. I'll also add a post-CSS config file, in which I'll just paste in some defaults to get it working properly for now. Seems I've hit a bit of a snag. Here I'm trying to figure out and resolve it. Seems like I had some missteps in the Tailwind config. There we go, all better. Now we can see the text is finally updated to blue, as the class has been defined on that component. Next, I'm adding some lint config rules so that we don't get weird errors for Tailwind decorators and directives. Now that we're pretty close, all that's left is a README to help other developers use the package easily. As mentioned earlier, there are a couple command line triggers for both npm and yarn you can use to quickly get started on a project of your own. Lastly, I decide I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste the .gitignore files from another Next.js example package. Now that everything looks good, let's add them all. Commit. And push up the latest fixes to GitHub. To test that everything works correctly, let's go ahead and trigger the yarn command. Looks like I had an issue running it, so let's try it with the npx command instead. Looking good so far. I'll just name this one test app and let the magic happen. Awesome. A few helpful commands to get started. So we'll cd in and trigger a yarn dev to get development environment going. Make sure you killed your other server before starting this one. You could also change the port number in the package.json file. Looks like it's working great. Here, I am just trying to validate the two projects look the same. And it does. Just some final finishing touches using the great Tailwind library to center everything. I hope you enjoyed this edited Twitch stream video of mine, and thanks so much for watching.